Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to talk about slate roofing and how to cut slates. Unfortunately, I don't have enough cedar here in a fro to cut cedar shingles, so we'll save that one for a later time. Now, in the 16th century is when slate roofing was first appearing in what is now the United States. It wasn't about until 1785 that the first quarry opened up so they could mine enough slate to make it readily available for all the consumers. As you can see, we have a nice thin piece of slate here. Thankfully, the old owners of my home left a pile of slate behind so I can play with it. This is more of a modern slate hook. As you can see, we have the nibs on the end, the hooks. What you do is you push this up underneath the piece of slate. You grab the nail and then you hit this with a wooden, copper, or leather hammer, and it pulls the nail out underneath the slate. And as soon as you get both nails out, because there's usually 2 nails per slate, then you can slide the slate out. This one here is a hand-forged slate hook. It's been around for quite a while, but it's a little thicker than we would use today for the slates that we have today on roofs. Back years ago, the slates were much, much thicker. And we have a slate cutter. Now, if you're looking to cut a long piece of slate, this would have sat on sort of a little jig, if you want to call it that, and you would use a downward motion and it would cut your slate. Now, this is what I was talking about. This is a wooden mallet. This is what you want to use when you're using a punch, because the punch is metal, this is wooden, and you don't want to strike metal on metal, because if you do, you can mushroom the head of your punch over. And then after a while, you keep mushrooming the head, then little pieces can fly off and possibly strike you or somebody working near you in the eye. We want to avoid injuries at all costs. This is a more modern slate hammer. As you can see, we have the spike for punching holes in the slate. On this edge is a blade for cutting the edges even. You have this obviously for pounding the nails, and you also have your little hook on the end for pulling nails. That's more modern. Well, we can do it both ways. We can do it the ancient way, or we can do it modern ways. Now, this little dandy tool is also a slate cutter. Now, this is what I was speaking of when I was speaking of the other slate cutter. It sits on a fixture, and you have 2 bars, and you have the cutter. You place your slate on here. Now, you want your mark on the inside of one of the bars, and then you bring it down and you cut your slate. And it usually cuts really, really, really good angles. Okay, and to demonstrate that right now, we'll take this piece of slate here. We'll take our punch, and what we'll do is we'll mark off a straight line such as that. We'll put it on the cutter, and there we have it. That's a pretty darn straight line. And now when it does that, it leaves you with a slight angle. You always want to make sure that you're cutting from the same side every time on each piece of slate, because you want this angle pointing up when you install it on the roof. Now, the old way is a little more tedious. We'll just draw a fairly straight line. And what they would do is they would use a punch on a flat piece of wood. You don't want something harder than the slate underneath, because it'll split and crack the slate. takes quite a bit longer than the cutter. Bear with me. We're about halfway through. And if you punch correctly, it'll come out fairly straight. Now, what we want to do is, from what I believe, they used probably a flat edge hatchet, such as a hewing hatchet, because a hewing hatchet is what? It's only sharp on one side, flat on the other. Now you want the flat part of the blade back against your slate. And there we have it. And that's pretty darn straight, just doing it by eye. Now, after they get their slate cut, they're going to want to punch holes in the slate for their nails. That's when your punch comes in handy again. Now you want to punch your holes to be about the same size as your nails. Typically now I believe they use galvanized. Back then when copper wasn't so high in price, they would use copper nails. And we have our two little holes. Now if this was square, we could put this right on the roof, but it's not. So, in order to expedite the process, remember, keep the top part of the slate that's facing the sky, pointed down. And there we are. And if you want to make shapes, we can also make shapes, because a lot of the roofs were ornate. And there we are. Not that difficult. You can do just about any shape that you want. Now, back in the day, it would take them a lot longer because they would be using the punch and the wooden mallet. There, we can make any shape we want. And remember, keep the sunny side down when you're cutting the slate, so you have all these angles pointing up. So there it is. It's a fairly simple process. Takes quite a while. And that's why back in the day it usually took quite a few roofers on a roof to replace slates or to put a slate roof on. And there we have it. In closing, wooden mallets, leather mallets, copper mallets, something a lot softer than your punches. Now, if we want to use the slate hammer, we draw our line on the slate. And this is where this comes in. And you want to make sure you're on a flat surface, so you clean the surface off. And you want to punch down through. This is, unless you're really good with a slate hammer, kind of doesn't work all that great. and I don't have the proper piece of wood to do this, because I should actually have a flat 4x4 or 6x6. See that? And we used the cutting edge of the slate hammer. And there we are. Not quite straight, but pretty darn close. And this one already has the hammer hole, or the nail holes in it, so we don't have to do that for this one. And unfortunately, I don't have, well, fortunately, I don't have a slate roof, but unfortunately, I don't have one to do a little demonstration on how to replace a slate. But there we have it. Slate, it's fairly easy. It just takes a little bit of practice. I did it when I was quite a bit younger, under the guidance of a really good slate layer, and I learned quite a bit from him. Even learned how to do cedar shakes, but we'll save that for next time. All right, everybody, enjoy your day. Get out and enjoy this sunshine, and we'll catch you next time.